Hello everyone, I'm VO5 and today I'm going to show you how to create a drop in Melodic Dubstep. As you can see, I've created a sample example for you to see. First I will talk about the tempo. Regarding the tempo, we should set it to the tempo of this track should be from 4.0 to 6.0. As for the depth, we should set it to 150, and here besides the drop we will also have the intro and block to create. The logic in this example, in the intro section, I use the following components. This example, in the intro section I use the following components. One is the strings from Cuttex, and the set is the Set and String Pro. Secondly, I use the cinematic from Nexus, Set and String Pro. Secondly, I use the cinematic from Nexus. This one, actually it's the cinematic piano from Nexus. In addition, I used the ambient sample creates a spacious, deep atmosphere. This ambient sound will create a fairly spacious atmosphere for us, and it's deep. At this point I've started adding other sounds. Here we can listen. A plug sound from Nexus is in the preset of this dubstep, which is quite fresh and fun. The preset of dubstep . This hair is quite fresh and fun. It's called Mars in the dubstep. To make it a bit heavier, I used a bass reel from Serum. So this bass reel part I'm taking from your bass. Now I have the dubstep, and then I'll start to get it from your bass, and now you can apply step. Then I'll start to move on to a part that's a bit heavier, and I'll add some percussion. Let's move on to a part that's a bit heavier and added some percussion, and still keep the same elements as before. For the percussion here we will have a kick that really pumps up the step. For the snare, I'll layer it up. Many different layers. Here, as you can see, I have 4 layers of snares. This is the snare for dubstep. So in this layer I have 2 snares coming from dubstep. I'm sorry, let me get that for her. then we can hear the sound like this. Of course, when you want to create a more diverse sound, you should layer it to create something that feels more unique. And there's something special about it. Genres like dubstep or like Feature Bay, we will have sounds like this reverse kick sound, a reverse kick like this. So when we stack the tad sections with a regular kick, it creates a heavier feel. And for the layer snare, I do something similar with a sound. A regular kick and it creates a heavier feel. And for the layer snare, I do something similar with the sound. This layer will have the reverse right at the point where the heaviness pulls down, so it can be right at this part. This layer will effectively have the reverse. Right at the exact point where the heaviness precisely pulls down. It can be right at this part. We're starting to move into the build-up. Before we get to the main build-up, the first half, we'll have a section that drops down almost like the drum pattern. So here I have using a downlifter and an impact. It will give a feeling like a transition. To listen, try it out. This downlifter will certainly makes us feel like time is slowing down. To enhance the drop of the emotional flow in this sample music. Here, this will be the main transition part for us. Here, besides the main elements that I've been working on from the beginning up to this point, we will also have a riser of thematic. In addition, we also have a riser from Feature Bay belonging to the ultrasonic set. And this is the part just before the build-up of the cinematic. Here, in the drop section, I have set up an automation for the volume to help us have a smoother transition, and it will gradually increase. And finally, I use the drum fill from UGNX to transition more smoothly, and it will gradually increase. And finally, I used a drum fill from UGNX combined with a glide from Oversample. When we put everything together, our buyout part will look like this. And that is the buyout part. And here will be the most important part of today's video, which is the drop. First, we will look at the first characteristic that Melodic Dubstep and Feature Bay all have, which is the session chord. For the chord progression, I use the lead sound from Nexus. Secondly, the static home fly from Flick. The third sound is the lead sound of 0, which is the delete mode. If the first two sounds are a hard saw wave and a very soft, bright tick on fly, then I use this serum to create more thickness, because this detune style will be very thick. Besides that, I also use it like this. And finally, that's Sockart, a Nexus plugin. It's the core sound, preventing confusion with Future Bay. We need the distinctive sound of melodic dubstep. And it can be said that this is the core sound quality of Silent Code, because if we don't use it, it's easy to mistake it for Future Bay. Because we need to have the distinctive sound of melodic dubstep in particular, and dubstep in general, to create the most fitting sound. At that point we will have a combination. Besides search and code, we have bass. Besides search and code, we also have the bass. I use the first 3 layers as the page. Search, of, Dexer. For this sound, I used legato with a speed of 1/8 so that the notes can glide into each other, creating a certain sense of depth. The second sound is the 90s bass. It's a bass sound. Also comes from Texas. And the final sound we have is sub. Without a bass that has sub, the music will really be quite thin and lack depth. So with a bass without a sub, the music will be quite thin and lack of clarity. So I use the 8/6 from Nexus. Next is the lead sound, and for the lead sound here I use 4 layers. First is Pixacode, a lead sound from Nexus program. The second one is Sister from Nexus. The third one is the Literature from Stop Working, which is Hammer. And finally, we have a sound from Nexus, and this is a sound from Preset Dubstep. It's called Noisy Square. And when we synthesize all 4 layers together, it will sound like this. And those are the main components. These 3 sounds, lead, string, chord, and bass, we will all use the search chain. And the way I use the search chain is like this, similar to feedback, where we will use a drum check like this. We have a drum check like this, and we will put the components of the sounds mentioned earlier into the mixer and then roll it like this. Roll to this track only. Everything will roll into this track, and then we will use automation. Here, I've clearly separated from component 1. That's it. Roll to this track only. All will roll to this track, and then we will use automation customization. Here I have clearly divided from component 1. The automations are all written the same way clearly, so everyone can see them. If we can do it quickly, then we don't need to split it into 3 different automations. 1 automation is enough, okay? Right now, I will let everyone listen to the session. That's about enough, okay. Right now, I'm going to let everyone listen to the session. Next, I will talk about the build-up and drop. The build-up and drop components are similar to the intro in terms of sound, but they won't be the same in terms of rhythm. Here, I will still keep it looking relaxed. The way to play the dubstep build-up has to be stretched out, and here I've made a slight change to the rhythm like this. The way to play the dubstep build-up has to be stretched out. I've made an adjustment to the rhythm. Using the build-up and lead versus the chord and bass, we have a lively section. When we use both the chord and lead against the chord and bass, we almost get a live swell of the sound. Dubstep melody. Besides those, we will have some subtle elements like this. In addition to the main structure components, we can use an arpeggio sound. I used New Flash from preset Upstep, so everyone can give it a listen. This type of sound doesn't need to be too loud. It will almost be in the background. When we play everything together, this won't be a detail for us to focus on. This won't be a detail for us to focus on. It will just subtly blend in as a supporting sound for the space. Pay attention. But it will only be... The subtlety is almost in the form of sound, which serves as a spatial support. And in terms of color, the way I run the phrase here will be quite bright. Additionally, I use the focus drop with 2 layers. The first layer is Future, Bass Riff 5, from the future pop voice of Dexert. The second layer is Future Bass Riff 3, also from the Fisher Puff voice. As for the next step, as you can clearly see here, that This part, I've divided this local chop into two sections so that when combined, it will have a thicker sound. It's quite loud. We can note a little bit that with these forms, if the original nature of the sound does not have a sidechain available, we should push the sidechain in. And here I'm using Kickstart 2, and the preset is Free Loop Punch. Along with that, I'm pushing it further with a mix level of 68%. Besides what I mentioned earlier, I'm also using the sounds from the clips. Then these details will be quite interesting and make my performance will be a bit more captivating. Finally, those are the three types of sounds of dubstep. The first one is Blood Sword, which belongs to the bass of dubstep. The second is Bass Monster, and the third is Bass Riffs. These three sound types also have characteristics similar to the lead sample we talked about earlier. Now you can give a listen to how I laid them out here. The first one is Blood Sword, which belongs to the bass of dubstep. The second is Bass Monster, and the third is Bass Riffs. These three types of sounds also have characteristics similar to the lead sample we talked about earlier. Now, you all can give them a listen. The way I'm writing here. So, I'm using Bassmaster and I've set legato with a speed of 1.8 to create those slides. Just a little. There's something you can do here, and this is one of my tricks, which is panning everything on the master track to make our sound move from left to right. The sound feels like it's hitting harder and moving from one hand to the other. What's special here is that between the two drops, the first drop and the second drop, when we reach the beginning of the second drop, I use a cut filter to create a transition. The sound is getting a bit muffled here, and then it comes back, combined with the sweep medium from Casimir. That's the drum fill to transition back to the main drop. Besides that, the main drop in addition, for the part after this drop, I'm going to start writing with both the hi-hat and the crush. I'm using Titan Crush from Symmetric and a hi-hat loop from Ultrasonic. Okay, here we combine everything together. Then we will get a weapon block like this. And that's what I wanted to share with everyone about how to create a drop in melon dubstep. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to support us in the future. Why?